A few weeks ago, this bike was literally rotting in my yard, but now it's a reliable e-bike reaching 25 miles per hour. And the crazy thing is that the whole conversion only cost $500. A brand new e-bike, on the other hand, with the same motor and battery would cost you at least $1,000. So today I'm going to show you exactly how I built this for half the price, how I solved every problem I ran into, as well as show you the hidden settings menu where you can mess around with the speed limiter. To stay on the cheap side, I'm using this old mountain bike and one of the cheapest conversion kits from Amazon that also includes a battery. The kit comes with everything you need, not sponsored by the way. You get a 500 watt hub motor laced into a 26-inch rim, a 48-volt battery, a motor controller, a touchscreen display, throttle, brakes with safety sensors, front and rear lights, a pedal assist sensor, and all the wiring we'll need. One thing I really liked about this kit, before you order it, you can customize the wheel size, display, and battery. So if you want that extra 250% more range, you can get a battery with extra capacity. And if you want a little bit more speed, they offer one with higher voltage. I skipped the torque arm since it's really only necessary at higher power, especially since this kit already includes these special tab washers that lock the axle into the fork. As long as you make sure that the nuts are tightened really well, you'll be good to go. But the bottom line is that this kit adapts to your bike, not the other way around. Most of the time, when somebody gives up on a project, it's because there are too many steps required. So a product that simplifies everything is a big plus in my book. If you like this video so far, do me a huge favor and hit that subscribe button. It just takes a second. Anyways, before you spend hours bolting things down to the bike, always bench test the kit first. Factory defects happen and you don't want to find that out after the work is done. Unlike my previous controller kit, which didn't have all the wires match color to color, this one is fully plug and play. Every connector is color coded and only fits into the right port, so this is the perfect kit for beginners. Definitely not a foreshadow, but I digress. Let's hook up the motor, battery, power it on, and as soon as we give it throttle, it spins. Perfect. It's not spinning at its maximum speed, but that's because I didn't check the manual yet on how to unlock it, which is something we're gonna do later. Alright, the kit works. Now we need to get this bike ready to actually accept it. The bike we're using has been sitting outside for 3 years. It's dirty and the chain is completely seized. A quick wash and a lot of WD-40 on the chain and sprocket, and it's finally moving again. Most mountain bikes come with a standard shock absorber, but this one somehow has a smaller one, so I'm swapping it out with a larger one from another donor bike, because I'd rather not feel every crack in the road. And just like that, bigger bumps shouldn't be a problem. That is, if the tire is installed correctly. I'm going to move the tire from the old rim onto the new motorized rim, so we don't have to spend any extra money. Starting with removing the wheel, depressurizing the tube using an Allen key that fits in there, and prying off the tire. It's best to use plastic prying tools and not metal ones. I'm talking about screwdrivers as well, because from my experience, metal will almost always puncture the tube and it might only haunt you in a few days after installing it. It's also important to make sure that the directional arrow on the tire matches the arrow on the motor in order to get good traction. I'll pop on the first bead, install the Schrader valve, push in the tube, force on the second bead, and I'll fill it to 50 psi, which is a good middle point in between the recommended 45 to 60 psi. A quick bounce test confirms we're good to go. You use these included special washers with a metal tab which keeps the motor shaft from spinning inside the fork. Now I know some of you prefer rear hub motors for better traction, and on my high-power e-bike, I use the rear motor for that reason. But if you want to keep it simple, a front wheel is both faster and easier to install. But something isn't right. The motor housing is rubbing directly against the fork on one side. So I installed one of these little washers between the motor and the fork, which was easier said than done, and it might shift just enough. And now it spins perfectly. So that's the mechanical side done, meaning we're ready to move to the electrical, which is the battery, controller, and all the wiring. The battery locks into a bracket with a key for security, which makes it harder for thieves to get what they want. I ended up spending a minute looking at the frame to figure out where is the right spot, because I need to make sure that the battery can still slide out without getting blocked by the stem. Once I figured that out, I wanted to mount the battery brackets in place, but soon found out that the kit didn't come with the right mounting bolts for this frame. So I marked the spot, used a punch, and drilled in self-tapping screws. Feels solid. Onto the brains. The motor controller came with a dedicated housing, but the screws were too short for the thick frame, so I had to pick up longer screws from my hardware store that were able to thread into the housing inserts. Added some Loctite so vibration doesn't shake them loose. Stuck the controller in with double-sided tape and screwed it shut. Honestly, it doesn't look bad, which means we can install the final components from this kit, which are the brake levers with built-in cutoff sensors, which is a crucial safety feature. The moment you pull the brake, it instantly cuts power to the motor, even if you're holding the throttle. My rear brake cable was completely seized from rust, so I replaced it, but then realized that the rim is a bit warped anyway, so I'm relying on the front brake for this build. For a dry, flat road at 24 miles per hour, it's fine, but I'll probably replace it eventually. I installed the new brake lever and throttle on the left, the display as center as it can be, then reinstalled the gear shifter, grips, and adjusted everything to my liking before tightening it down. To mount the headlight, I used the nut and bolt that keeps the handlebar locked in place, connected all the connectors just like before, and then secured all the wiring with zip ties so nothing gets caught in the wheels. Before we get to the fun part, let me run you through a few things that trip me up so you don't have to deal with them. On the first power up, I thought the power button was supposed to be on the top, but apparently it's supposed to be on the bottom, meaning the display is flipped, but it's a pretty easy fix by unscrewing one of the screws and swinging open its hinge, which makes it pretty easy and saves me the headache of having to remove the rest of the components from the handlebar. Another minor OCD issue is that the display is set to kilometers by default, which can easily be fixed by pressing the power button 3 times, scroll down to the system, hit the power button, then scroll down to mile, press OK, swipe left twice, and there we go. Remember at the beginning where I mentioned the hidden settings menu? Let me show you what's in there. I discovered that the password behind the advanced settings is 1919. Which after entering that, brings us to the speed limiter. To my surprise, it was already set to 99 kilometers an hour. I'm quite happy with that. So with that out of the way, it's time to set the speed to the max by pressing the top part of the display until we see the number 5, which will give us the highest speed. The acceleration is incredibly smooth, because by default it has a similar delayed acceleration curve, just like chill mode on a Tesla, which prevents you from jerking backwards, unlike some of my other more powerful vehicles. On flat ground, I'm consistently hitting 24 miles per hour, which I gotta say is on the faster side for an average e-bike, especially for this price range. On a slight downhill with wind at my back, I reached 25 miles per hour for a few seconds. For a bike that was rotting in my yard a few days ago, this is incredible. So, is this kit worth it? Considering that the average pre-built 500 watt e-bike is usually over $1,000, this entire build, including the kit and every extra part I needed, still came out to at least half the price. And honestly, the performance should still be the same. With that note, if you enjoy doing hands-on DIY projects, this is the way to go. You'll save money, you'll learn how things work, and if something breaks down the road, you'll know how to fix it. If you don't enjoy it and just want that peace of mind knowing a brand name will stand behind its product, then buying a pre-built e-bike might be the better choice, and that's totally fine. I'll leave a link to the exact kit I used in the description. If you're enjoying this content and want to support the channel directly, please consider joining my Patreon, and even a few dollars a month helps me keep the lights on and keep making videos that will save you time and money. There's a link right up here. Just for the heck of it, let me ride around my yard to test its off-road capabilities. Not bad. Upgrading the shock absorber was definitely worth it. Still here? Check out this playlist I put together. It has all kind of e-bike builds, fixes, and modifications. And I will see you guys in the next video.